We have a great interview lined up for you this hour, and man, we're going to be going back over the last decade or so in Mecklenburg County history and kind of looking forward to what comes next for the county, because as we reported here on WCNC Plus, Mecklenburg County Manager Dena Diorio is going to be retiring from that position. There will be someone new stepping in on July 1st, and so we wanted to have Dena Diorio here to talk about what the last 11 years have meant to you, kind of as you prepare to close this chapter. I mean, I can imagine that's probably a bittersweet type of feeling for you, but July 1st is coming up a week from today. How are you feeling? And what went into this decision that you felt like, this time, this was time to do this?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being able to take the time to talk about all this. I'm feeling really good. I mean, I think when you're ready, and I think for me, this was certainly the right time for me to go, and there was a number of reasons why I wanted to do this. First, we have a new board chair. He's not all that new anymore, but Mark Jarrell came in December. Lee Altman came in also as our new vice chair. Young leadership, and I really thought it was important that young leadership really develop a relationship with the next young leader of Mecklenburg County. And I knew that I was going to be retiring at some point, but when that change happened, I thought that was a good time for me to go. There's also a lot of new young leaders in the county in a lot of these other organizations. So you've got, the United Way, the Y, the Alliance, the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority. We have a lot of new young leaders, and it was really, I think, important that all the young leaders get together and really sort of talk about what the future is for Mecklenburg County and the city of Charlotte. And, and I've talked about this before, my first husband died when he, was young, 68 years old, and never retired, not a single day. And so I really made a commitment to myself that I was going to retire when I was young and healthy enough to enjoy it. So all of those things together really contributed to my decision.
So, I mean, knowing that this time is coming to a close, you've been county manager for 11 years at this point. What do you look back on and say, man, I'm really proud of this, that we did this?
So there's so many great things I think we've accomplished over the last 11 and a half years, but I think one of the things I'm most proud of is, as an organization, Mecklenburg County is relevant, I think, in this community. And when I got to Mecklenburg County in 2007, I was the chief financial officer before county manager. And when I became county manager in 2014, I don't really feel that Mecklenburg County was relevant, that people would call upon Mecklenburg County to be at the table when problems were being solved. And that was one of my big priorities, was to really make sure that we were part of the conversation and people looked to us to help solve those problems. And I think that's definitely accomplished. I think we are definitely a relevant organization. We're a high-performing organization. We've got over 6,000 committed employees who work so hard to provide high-quality services to all the residents in Mecklenburg County, and I think I'm most proud of that.
I mean, there are a few headlines that I remember from your time as county manager. I'm probably a bit partial to this, but I moved to Charlotte pre-pandemic, but literally just right before the pandemic. And, starting off here at WCNC Charlotte, essentially my time here kicked off as a COVID reporter. So I was responsible for following the data for not just North Carolina and the nation, but also specifically counties in Mecklenburg County. And you were at those briefings every single day. It felt like there was a period of time where we were doing the daily briefings, and you had to be one of the leaders of the county through a pretty difficult time for a lot of folks. And I'm just curious how that sat with you and what you look back now, on that time and think, man, how did we do that?
Well, I mean, it was a very difficult time, and part of the difficulty obviously was that nobody knew what we were really dealing with, and so you really didn't know what each day was going to bring. So you got up in the morning and you just sort of said, well, let's see what today brings. And so having to be nimble and being able to pivot when you needed to pivot, but we did it as a team. There were a number of people who were part of our group, our hospital systems, all the other, the city of Charlotte, the towns, all the other people who needed to be part of those conversations. We did it as a group, and we decided, as a team, how we were going to proceed on everything. So while I was the one at the briefings, I was certainly not the one driving all those decisions. I mean, we really did it as a group, and I think that's what made us, most successful. And in the early days, that group, we talked 2 and 3 times a day. We did a briefing to the public once a day, but we were talking all the time to make sure that we were always aligned, that we always understood to the best that we could what the data was telling us, what the science was telling us, and what advice and guidance we needed to tell the public.
I mean, there's no playbook for that.
There's not. And they don't teach you in school. Nobody teaches you how to manage through a worldwide pandemic. And again, that was another reason why I retired, because I said, I'm not doing that again, and so I'm getting out of here before the next big thing happens.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, difficult time, a lot of difficult decisions had to be made. The other, headline I remember, because there was even a New York Times article written about your decision, your role in this, but the response to the cyber hacking.
Mm-hmm.
Attacks in 2017, where Mecklenburg County, y'all had, the ransom that, somebody wanted, and you decided that you weren't going to pay that ransom. And I remember the New York Times headline about that, and I think somewhere within the first 2 or 3 sentences of that first paragraph, it was finally someone stood up to these cyber hackers. Can you talk us through that situation? And
Sure. Well, there was a lot also to that situation, and we had to look sort of internally at what the situation was, and one of the things that we were able to determine was that we had the vast majority of our data backed up, because if you don't have your data backed up, then you really are at the will of these cyber hackers. And so the fact that we had our data gave us some ability to make a decision that would allow us to recover. I mean, it was really all about recovery, and so having our data was really critically important. But we also talked to the FBI, the CIA, all of the law enforcement agencies. We talked to our colleagues at Bank of America and Wells Fargo. We got a lot of input. We also talked to our cyber insurance company, and actually they were the ones that told us that we should actually pay the ransom, where everybody else was telling us not to pay the ransom. So we had sort of conflicting pieces of feedback, but really knowing that we were able to restore our data, it took many, many, many weeks to be able to do that, and so we were offline for a really long time. But that was really a key part of that decision. The other part of the decision was you can pay the ransom, but you don't know if the encryption key is going to work, so you could end up in the situation that you were before, when you started. And then also, once you pay the ransom, you really become a target for future hackers because they think you're going to pay. So there was a lot of things that we had to go through. But, again, our employees were providing services and keeping records on pen and paper because they couldn't record anything in any of our systems. We couldn't interface with any of our state systems. They wouldn't let us connect to their systems. So it was a long road to be able to come back. Our HR system was down. We couldn't hire any people. So it took a while, but it was the right decision. And since then, we've, probably invested well over $30 million to really make sure that we're prepared for the next time when it does happen, because I think no one's immune, but that we will be able to recover quickly.
I can imagine, and this feels like an illustration of that, this cyber hacking situation. In 11 years as county manager, you've probably seen a lot of changes in government and the role of government and how government has to respond to certain things and even what the government has to respond to. And I just think, from a perspective of a reporter and how we see things evolve, in a short period of time, it seems like relative. Can you think back to when you first started and now, and how much things have changed for you as somebody who manages the county?
I think in some respects, things definitely change, right? So technology is one of those things that changes dramatically. And, one of the things that we've been talking about in sort of my last 8 or so months is, how are we going to incorporate AI into how we provide services? So that's all new. But in the basic provision of county services, mm-hmm. they really don't change all that much. We can find a better way to do it, a more efficient way to do it. But when you're looking at a family who needs food stamps or needs Medicaid, that's really a transaction that it doesn't really change. It's really about making sure people get the services that they need. But there are things around technology that we've had to try to make things better and more efficient, for sure.
Now, I know you've said before one of the things that you're particularly proud about of, your time with the county was the MEC Pre-K program, and it looks like there continues to see, we see the enrollment growth with that, so there's clearly a need and an interest. Tell us about that program, how it's evolved, and your feelings now that I guess it's there in place, and the next generation can come in and usher in the next chapter for this program as well.
So the MEC Pre-K program really stemmed out of the Chetty study, the 50 out of 50 that the county was in 2014. We had a task force that came out with a big report. And one of the recommendations in that report was making sure that children had access to pre-K education, that children that have access to a high-quality pre-K experience do better in school, they're more likely to graduate high school, go to college, make more money over their lifetime, have less involvement with the criminal justice system. So the research was really clear about that. So Mecklenburg County as an entity, if we were going to lean in and try to make a difference as it relates to economic mobility and economic opportunity, we decided this was a place where we could lean in, because if we didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. And so we started in 2019. We launched our first class, and we have 105 classrooms now, and in the budget they just expanded for 10 additional classrooms, so we'll have 115 classrooms. And since we started the program, we've educated about 10,000 4-year-olds, which is remarkable, and that is transformational for those kids and for their families. So really proud of it and really excited that we have the support, and we continue to have the support for that really important program.
Yeah, I mean, education's certainly a big topic, from various perspectives. I know we talk about education in relation to, the pandemic and how kids might be bouncing back or not bouncing back in some areas from that. And so, I mean, have you heard of any discussions about, as it pertains to MEC Pre-K, how there might be, any changes or, ways to try to get ahead of any sort of learning shortfalls, for the community because of what we're seeing right now?
Well, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, all I can tell you is that, we do assessments of our kids when they come into our program and when they leave our program, and we know that our kids achieve a tremendous amount of growth during the year that they're in the MEC Pre-K program. So we are sending them off to kindergarten, we believe, ready to learn and ready to be successful. And so if the data is correct, then we know that we're doing the right thing for those kids.
Now, I did want to talk about, being in government and how, I feel like in some ways social media and the internet might have changed, I guess you might say, the spotlight on what it means to be in government. And, I think there are a lot of ways that social media can bring, the public closer to the people who are, making the decisions and setting the policies in their communities. But there could also be, maybe a downside where, for example, I've heard from, some communities within the Charlotte area, but up in the high country, where they feel like because they're streaming their meetings, for example, they might have people who come from the outside who have no stake in the community, maybe just wanting to cause trouble or bully people. And I'm just curious if you've ever seen, that type of situation, with your role in government, and if that's changed at all because of the internet and social media.
Well, I think it has changed. When I first started with Mecklenburg County, we were not streaming meetings. And so we've come a long way since when I first started, and that's only 18 years. So from where I was to where I am in terms of how people are able to access information about government has really changed. Yes, we have people who come that maybe are instigators who really don't have skin in the game to the issues that we're talking about. But overall, transparency and making government accessible to people is always going to be better than not. And so while we do have to deal with folks who are going to be critical of what we're doing or try to be instigators or to cause trouble, I think the vast majority of people just want accurate information about their government, about what their government is doing and how they're making those decisions and how their money is being spent. And so I think that's all good. I think for somebody like me, you are more aware of the fact that there's a lot of places where people can take shots at you, but you have to stay consistent on your message, and you have to be transparent and accessible. And I think that's one of the things that me and my team have been very focused on, is making sure that we've always been accessible to the media. When people want to talk to us, we always make sure we make ourselves available. Public records requests, we always make sure we respond quickly, because I think in those instances when something goes wrong, you hope that when you build those relationships about being accessible and transparent, that you will get the benefit of the doubt. than for somebody who doesn't practice that way. And so I think we've been very intentional about doing that.
And so I guess on that note, what is your message to the community then about how they interact with their policymakers and with leadership in their community, and how they pay attention to what is going on?
Well, I mean, I think what I would say is it's always okay to disagree, but you don't have to be disagreeable, right? I mean, we're all never going to agree. We're never going to agree on everything, but I think there's a civil way to have a conversation where we can have a good dialogue, and not escalate it to a point where that becomes the story. We never want that to become the story. We want to be able to make sure we have a good dialogue.
Yeah. We know that we've reported this here on WCNC Plus, the fact that the Deputy County Manager, Mike Bryant, will be taking over after you officially step down on July 1st. So have you spoken to him about taking over the reins? Have you given him advice? If so, anything that you could share with us that you've shared with him?
Yeah, so I mean, I am really proud of Mike. I've known Mike for 18 years. He's been with the county for 22. So, he's watched me for 11 and a half years in this job, and I know he's paid attention. So I'm hopeful he's picked up a few tips along the way. But what I've told him is a couple things. One is you need to leave your ego at the door. You need to understand and embrace the fact that you don't know everything, and you need to surround yourself with people who know the things that you don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. Because if you try to be the smartest person in the room all the time, it never is going to go well for you. And the other thing I've told him is to make sure that he protects the position of county manager. The Board of County Commissioners creates policy, he executes on the policy, and you really need to make sure that you keep that line in the sand really clear, and as everybody stays in their respective lanes, it's a much more productive relationship.
So we know that recently, just a bit earlier this month, you were honored with the Order of the Hornet, which is the highest honor that Mecklenburg County can bestow, and it's all because of your role and your work with the county for so many years. Tell us about that moment. We've got some pictures that we can share with folks here on Live Impact News, and emotional at all? I mean, I just
well, it is. I mean, I've watched so many people get that award over the 18 years that I've been with the county, and to actually be the one to receive it is incredibly special. And the board, each member of the board said really incredibly nice things to me and about me. And it felt really good to be able to go and leave my service as a Mecklenburg County employee receiving such a wonderful honor. So I'm incredibly proud.
How do you feel about the county, the state of the county going forward? You talked about the fact that, you made this decision in part because you felt like this is a new generation coming in and you wanted to make room for that. How do you feel about the new generation? Do you feel optimistic? Are there concerns about challenges you feel like might be coming for them that maybe you didn't face? Yeah.
So one of the other reasons why I was, considering retirement is that I find it very hard to manage younger people now. And it's not a criticism of younger people, but their work ethic is different, how they want to work is different, where they want to work is different, what's important to them is different. And that's just not the way I was brought up in the world. And so I think a younger person will be more successful in managing a younger generation. I think the county's in great shape. I think the thing that will put pressure on the county is what happens externally. We're still not sure about what could potentially happen with federal budget cuts, how those will impact the state, how the state will ultimately trickle that down to all local governments in North Carolina and across the country. And I think those are the things that the next county manager is really going to have to grapple with, is how do you pivot and change and adapt what you do in those very, very, I think, are going to be very trying times, if in fact they go forward the way we anticipate that they will.
Yeah. You mentioned the fact that one of the other decisions, or factors that went into the decision, the fact that you thought, I want to have some time to enjoy retirement. So what does that look like? Will you be doing travel? Will you just be here watching from afar? I imagine you'll be unplugged, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to be watching from afar. I can tell you that. But, my husband and I have some plans to travel this summer and in the fall, and we're going to continue to do that. I'm a big golfer. I think a lot of people know that I'm a big golfer, so I want to play more golf. I want to cook more, cook healthy, and work out more. Just live life doing the things that I want to do, not what I have to do. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, I'm excited for your new chapter. Like I mentioned, I'm sure there's, a little bit of a bittersweet feeling having to close that chapter, but knowing as well that there's more fun perhaps on the horizon for you. Anything that you'd like to leave us with before we wrap things up, just about reflecting back, the future of Mecklenburg County, the community, anything you want to say to the public?
Well, I want to first say that it has been an incredible honor to serve this county, not just as county manager, but also as our CFO for 7 years. It's been wonderful. I've had a really wonderful, I love my job, and I've always loved what I do, and I think I'm really good at what I do. So it's been a real pleasure to do that, and I really want to thank the community for all of their support. I mean, I think this community has been incredibly kind to me and incredibly supportive of me, and that doesn't always happen when you're in a position like mine. So I feel very fortunate and very blessed.
Well, Dena Diorio, we thank you so much for you coming here, taking the time to speak with us on Live Impact News and reflect back on the last 11 years, and looking forward to, your next chapter. Sounds like it's going to be a good one. So thank you again.